Okay, welcome back to part 2 of my directory engine build out course, where I'm going step by step on how to set up a directory from scratch within the Ligna platform. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. All these videos are coming out in order. This video, we're going to cover the linking. So on the previous video, I said I was going to go through and set everything up, kind of finalize after the training. And so I did. This is what it looks like. I did some customizations. I, basically made this a little bit lighter so it looks a little bit better instead of it being so dark. Obviously put all the content in. I picked out my core categories and set those up with the icons. I put in the images that I wanted for each of these categories here. And then I came over here and set up, this data form and this call to action. The goal of the directory obviously is to bring lawyers to me so then we can reach out and offer additional services. We're giving them something of value, a local citation that helps them rank locally. So it's a win-win situation. But over time, as these pages get indexed and, actual consumers are coming here looking for lawyers, I've set this CTA up to ultimately drive them to a free consultation. That way I then can take those leads and do something with them, acquire more lawyers and those types of things. Again, the directory latest edition, set all that up. This is actually still pulling in the contractor listings because I haven't finalized setting up the lawyer directory yet. And then I put together a little section for the blog, which I have no blog post in yet. Just put in some information in there. I also created a little link here for free consultation, an anchor link. I'm going to show you how I did that. And of course, I just left these in here so you can take a look of, how this is done. And so let's jump into it. The main part of this video is going to be how to link, how to set it up, the concept between the pages for categories and all that, and just really kind of get to the next stage of getting this site all prepped and set up. So I'm going to jump over here to the builder. So in this section, let's talk about the navigation. So we have what are called global blocks. Global blocks are essentially sections within the site that is going to be reused on additional pages, your header, your footer, your CTAs. This particular directory theme, and most of the global themes we have, well, all of our global themes have, come with pre-built global blocks, meaning this navigation here is set up with a global block that if I make a change here to the navigation, anything, change the logo, change this link, add a link, whatever, it's going to update on all the pages that share that global block. I don't have to go to each individual page. Same thing for the footer and certain sections. There may be a section that you want, so you don't have to do anything, by the way. It's just if you want to leverage additional sections to be global blocks, you would select that section. Like for instance, if I want to make this a global block, I would click on this little icon, the globe, and then I would name it. The name is all no spaces, capital, lowercase, just no spaces. Name it whatever you want and click add block and then save. When you do that, over here on this tab down here, you'll find your global blocks that you can drag over and use on different pages. And if you didn't watch the first video, I highly recommend it. It's super important to know where you're at too. And that's where this layer panel becomes your friend, to know exactly what you're copying or turning into a global block. Because you want to make sure you have all of it. As I mentioned in the previous video and additional trainings, you may not be on the layer that takes the whole layer, and that's going to be super apparent when you're building your navigation. I'm going to show you why. So let's move over to our linking for our pages. So everything on our site or in our CMS, when you're linking to our pages, is all relative path. And what that means is when you click on a link, any link, and you click on settings, you'll have this little href section here with a link. Right now, it's just a number sign, right? Linking to our platform always starts with the / page name / The page name is all lowercase. If there's spaces, there's a dash. You can get the actual page name by clicking on the Pages tab. And then, for instance, if I wanted to get what's the page name for About, I would click on Settings. And that'll take me out here to get the page URL. You notice there's not a / in the front and a / on the end. That's for you to link, but this is what the format was. If this was About Us, for instance, if I did About Us and hit refresh, it'll build out the URL for me. You can also override this if you wanted to. Basically what we do is any spaces we add a dash. So this is your page URL. To link it, you need a forward slash in the front and a forward slash on the end. Pretty simple. So for instance, if I wanted to change this particular link to about, I would name it about, oops. And then I would click on settings and I would change it to forward slash about forward slash. And that's it. Now I'm linking to about. If it was about us, I would grab that about us and do it that way. So it's just forward slash forward slash. Now, when building out your navigation, it's super important to know what layer you're on when you're duplicating. For instance, you may want more drop downs than just one. You may want to remove this one that's in there. You may only want one. You may not want to have any. Like in my case, I'm just going to do free consultation and add listing. I'm not going to have all this other stuff. In my footer, I'm going to link out to the title site and all that, keeping it super simple for these directories, you know, as far as the pages. But you may want to build out additional pages as a full-blown site within this directory. And doing so, you may want to have more drop downs or less drop downs. Now, if I was to clone this drop down, if I just clicked here and click the clone button or copy button, it'd drop down, and that's not what you want, right? You want it to be within the structure of the navigation. The reason why that's happening is because you do not have the entire block. So the block's kind of over here, and so you can click there, but the easiest way to do is just click on the link, click on the panels tab, and just go up one more, and then clone. And so you're there. You can also hit the up button there, but you know you're on this because it formatted perfectly for you, right? It didn't mess up the menu item. So you know you're on the right layer when you're duplicating. Same thing here. So let's say I wanted to change this or add a different link. So changing, you obviously double click it in, you can start changing whatever you want. But let's say you wanted to duplicate, like have another one below here. As soon as you move out, it disappears, but you're still on it. And you can tell because you still have this little option here, and in your layers, you're on there. And you can see I'm not on the right thing I want to duplicate, because if I duplicate that, it just duplicates the link, which will work, but it's not built within the design. I mean, it's not breaking the structure of the design, but it's still not perfect to the theme. So you'd want to go up one layer or click in your panels to the next layer and then just hit clone. And now you have it perfect there. Now, of course, you click on the link, change the name, do whatever you want. And of course, click on the settings tab and change the particular link itself. And that's basically how simple it is to link to any internal page. Now, where it gets a little more complicated for the directory engine, and this is not something you have to do, maybe something you want to do, and as you go through this tutorial, you end up deciding to do that. But when we build out a directory listing, we're building out the URL for you. So this particular URL, if I clicked on it, this is going to take you out to the listing, which is going to set you up with lawyers.title.io/biz/the company name / an ID. The company name and the ID is generated dynamically for you and is appended to the URL that you want to use. So in this case, with the theme being built for you, the default is biz. Well, you may not want every directory listing to follow biz. You may not want the personalized URL to be biz. You may want to call it profile. You may want to call it company. You may want to call it something else. Doesn't matter. You can call it however you like. The way that works is basically any page that you create. So if I came over here to biz, if I were to change this name, right, this is the default page, which we're going to talk about all these tags and everything else. But if I wanted to change this template page for the profiles, change it to whatever one. If I change it there's certain places you have to change it on the theme, and you got to know how to do that, which I'm going to show you right now. So let's just say I wanted to change, which I'm not, but let's say I wanted to change this to profile. So now my page name is profile. If I were to come over here to the directory, there's several places you're going to need to do that. The very first place you're going to need to do that is on the home page. So inside this directory module, there's several links. There's a link for the image. There's a link for the name. There's a link for the snippet. There's a category link, which we'll talk about changing the category in just a second. But right now, we just want to change biz to profile or biz to company or whatever you want to call it. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is change the link on the name. So just click on the link on the name. Then I'm going to click on settings, and you'll see that it's /biz with a tag after it. That tag is a dynamic URL that's generated, the company name, the ID that sits in front of this URL. So now you can change that to /profile, /company, / whatever you end up calling that page that's provided for the profiles. Now, what's interesting is that it's not followed by a / like we do on all our other linking. And the reason behind that is because this particular tag generates the / and from the front and the back, and so it's already generating that for you. So you don't want to put it in there. You have 2 /. So anytime you're using this for the directory engine, just note that's the format, / whatever page name you end up calling it, and then the tag. So you change it there, you would change it on the view, snippet link there, and then you would change it. So there's a link here. So if you click on the link, there's a link there, you change it there. So there's a link on the logo, and then there's also a link on this. However, this is one of those scenarios where where's the link at? You can click up one more to get to it, or again, you can go in your link panel or layers panel and click on the actual link and then click on settings, and you're going to change the biz to whatever name you want. Definitely not required. You absolutely can just leave it the way it is and it'll work perfectly for you. But if you do change the name of the format, such as biz to company or profile or whatever else, you have to update it here in each directory widget. And there's multiple widgets on here. So there's this widget. Then in the inside pages, you have categories. So I'll come back to this category page in just a second to explain, but let's just go to the biz page itself. Now, in this example, we changed it to profile, but you would go into that page and you would come down here on this page. There's also this recent additions widget that has links. So you're going to click on the name, click on setting. You're going to change out the biz. You're going to click on, again, the image. There's a link right there, but if you can't find it or you didn't click on it right, just always look at the panel, see where that link is. Click on settings and then change that. Those are the only 2 sections you got to change for the directory listing. If we change the category, you got to change all the categories too, but those are the only sections within the home page and this particular page. Now moving on to the categories page, this is labeled as C. So when you come out to your directory and click on a category like landscaper, this has 2 different ways that categories work. Categories built-in localize, which is super powerful, by the way, especially when you start seeing what I'm going to do with this and what I've done with the contractor directory and what you should be doing. It localizes all your categories, but the categories also have a top-level category that pulls in all businesses, not just based on their location. And that's essentially just erasing the category section or the city and state and just leaving the C / landscaper, and that'll bring in the landscaper category top level that's not related to the city. Now you'll notice that the URL is lawyers.title.io /C / landscaper. The reason why it's C is because in the builder, the page name is C. Now you may not want that. You may want category, you may want cat, you may want whatever. So you can change that. You would go into the page settings and you would change the page name for C to whatever you want. But if you do that, you need to update everywhere where there's a link to the category. For example, in this profile page, there are all sorts of links to categories, from main categories to subcategories. And then there's also these main category, subcategory here. So not all sorts of places, just 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. So you click on the link, click on settings, you change C to whatever you want. And this is where probably there could have been a little bit better planning as far as when to have a / and when not to have a /. Because these are particularly on a category standpoint, you have to end with a /. You'll know the format, by the way, off the template. So when you go into the template, and I'll have documentation if you're going to build something from scratch, like on a different theme that we don't provide. But to link to the category section, it's / the category page name / and then the tag. So you'll see the format. Just click on it and just replace that. If there's a / there, leave it. If there's not a /, then obviously there's not supposed to be a / And just go to each one of these. By the way, I mentioned on the category standpoint, there's other places for categories, and we're going to talk about how to link statically for like these sections on your homepage. But here, then I would set this link and then set this link, right? If I'm going to change the actual link, this is not a link, by the way, it's just, it lists it out. You can tell that the subcategory link's there and then the main category link. So that's essentially building out within there. You would put your link and your tag and do all that if you want to change out the category. Let's see here. That's pretty much all in this section if you want to change the category. Now, if you're going to link the category section, so for instance, in the home page, you would come in here and click on the link, click on settings. You'll notice there's nothing there for you. So this is where you have to build your static categories. You're physically linking to a category. The best way to understand it is that we have tons of categories that are just part of the directory. However, when you set the directory up in the next video and like going through those steps, you can create your own categories. And the category link is just like our page builder. It's a category name. If there's a space, it's a dash. It's all lowercase, / in the front, / on the end. What I do is that I want to make sure the category name, or at least the URL link that I'm using, since I'm pulling data from Google Maps, I want it to mirror the same category that's on Google Maps. So for example, I'm calling this estate and probate. Well, that's likely not a category on Google Maps, and it's likely not a category that I'm actually going to put as an option when someone's registering for their business or creating a listing for that particular category. I'm going to call it estate lawyers or something like that, right? So what you would want to do is just go out to Google. If you're going to use the continuous worker or worker technology to bring in data, if you're bringing in your own data, you name the categories whatever you want. You just got to know the format of creating those actual category links. In this case, I want to mirror the category that's coming in from Google Maps because I'm obviously turning on a continuous worker to build up my directory on autopilot. And so in this case, I just went out and searched estate lawyers, and you get one with attorney and you'll see it. So estate planning attorney, that's the category for this. Now I'm going to call it estate and probate. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where it's going to link to. So I'm going to click on the link and I would do /C because I'm keeping my category name or category page C / estate dash planning because there was a space after estate, and then dash attorney, and then /. So that's my category URL for this particular category. And then I would go to each one. I would update each individual one with that. And just do a little research on what the actual core category name is going to be. You can call it whatever you want here in the text. It's just whatever it ends up being. You know, specifically, if you're pulling data from Google Maps, with our technology, it inherits the category that comes from Google Maps. Now, when you set up the actual directory and your categories and everything like that, you can create whatever category names you want, just whatever the name is. If there's a space, there's a dash, everything's lowercase, / at the beginning, / at the end. And that's how you link everything up. So you're just going to go through all of this and set up all your links. If you're not changing anything on the actual directory engine, you know, as far as the linking there, don't worry about it. It's all built in that way. And then just update everything. On the footer, I like to put all my categories in here. To do that, the simplest way, I mean, obviously you can go one by one and do it. That's obviously how you would do that before ChatGPT. But I like just grabbing the entire section here, clicking on this little tab here, copying all this, giving a little prompt about what the category URL is and the format for it, and you know, basically explain that I want this to be my categories section, linking out all my categories here provide me back the HTML, paste it in here, hit apply, save, or go one by one. I like linking out obviously to title and putting different links here, so I'll do that. This section, typically what I would do is delete all of this and put in like about us or a network or something like that, or I may move this over here and do that. But basically to get this deleted, right, you need to get the whole section there. So you got to go up and then delete it. And then I would come over here to my little drag and drop panel. I would grab my little text option and drop that in there. And then I can, about this network or whatever. Of course, use ChatGPT to write that. I usually drop the address, put the phone number in. So links work the same way on icons, social icons. The theme does come with the terms and conditions. I'm sure it's not all Latin. Yeah, it is. So you would need to come in here and fill out all this stuff or link to your current site that has terms and conditions. That's what I'm doing. On the internal pages, each one of these pages that you set up, so as you go to the categories, as I mentioned here, you have the default image. So there's a homepage setup, your linking strategy, your categories, all the images for the categories. I showed you that on the previous video of how to remove, replace these images. And then there's the category page, the results page, which I'll show you in just a second, and the business profile page. Each of those need to be configured and set up. For example, you need to change out the banner here, on each page. Change out a banner, I showed you in the previous video, but you're gonna click on the section, click on the style menu here, click on decorations. If this was like the home page where you click here on a previous example that I showed on the previous video, there may be an image here, but you're seeing that there's not an image when you click on it. You're on this section all the way throughout. Click on the style menu, go over here to the background, swap out the image. You have the default image that you have to replace here. This has to be done not only on the home page, it needs to be done on the category page, and needs to be done on the results page for the default image. So let's go over here to the results page. The results page, this is another example of a page that you can control. So on the results page, this is powered based on the forms that are on the home page and then also on the header. So if you want to change it from R to results or search or whatever, works the same way. You just have to update the form post link, which I'll show you in just a second. I wouldn't mess with it because it's not, even though you could index them, you could get those results page and submit those and index, but there's a lot better strategy for that. I wouldn't worry about it. So for example, if I wanted to go, again, because this is tied to the contractor listings, I don't have lawyer listings in here yet. I'm just going to search remodeler, and then I'm going to do Austin, Texas, and I'm going to go ahead and click search now. And so what happens is the URL is /r/ what I searched, right? So that's pulling in all my results. If you wanted to change this out to results or search, you would have to update inside the form each section just like you would on the links. And it's here on your input, you would go up to the form. It's a little bit different for forms because I don't have, so let me go into the layers. I don't have the setting allowing you to change the post URL here. You actually do have to click on this little code editor here and change it right there on the action. So I do need to do that. I need to add the action here when you're actually selected on the form. Typically, most of the forms are generated based on our data forms, so I didn't really think about that. So I do need to do that. But to do that, if you want, by the way, I don't recommend doing this, but if you did want, if you're a more advanced user and you want to use this, change everything, absolutely can. You would just select that layer, the form, and then you would click on the code view right there and then just change R to whatever you want to call it. That is done there, and then it's also done on the home page here within there. But you would need on this results page, categories, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the video, and I think I did. This is set up by a global block. So if you change this on one of the pages, it updates all the way across. I do not have a global block set for these directory widgets because they're different, right? So you can configure them independently to show featured listings, which we're going to cover all the settings on the directory on the next video, but featured listing, different categories, cities, whatever, you can filter. And so each of the pages that have these widgets are independent. So you got to edit each of those, which the only thing you should be editing, unless you're changing the category names and the listing names, is the default image. You just come to this page, double click here, grab your default image, and then go to the next, which is just the category page, C in this example, and R. The next one that you got to configure as far as a default image is on the biz page, profile page. There's a little widget over here on the bottom right that has a default image. So you double click on that. But other than that, that's the only things you need to edit on each of those sections. Of course, you got to set the header for each of those. And you may want to have a different, I'm just doing super simple. I'm creating for the category pages and the results page. I'm using the same header. You can do a different one on each of those, however you want to do it and however you want to customize it with throughout that. So again, once you've understand how to link, set your navigation. This is going to update on all pages. The only page is not going to update is on the biz profile page. That's because there's another different navigation. So you'll notice on the results page or on the profile page, there's a different navigation. It's a light theme. So it doesn't have a transparent background. There's no banner. Reason for that, let me go to one that actually has an image. So these listings, you can create as many images as you want. And this is a gallery. So this is a gallery that shows up. So each image shows up here and it just scrolls through. It's kind of cool throughout that. You could obviously delete this if you didn't want that, but I highly recommend that you do. And it has the white top. Until you scroll down, then it's, again, the dark sticky nav. So how do you get it to where you can make the navigation the same here? And unfortunately, because it's two different navigations, you have two global blocks. And that's pre-built with the system. So inside our global block section, we have global inside header. That's this inside header. And then you have the global header. You don't have to worry about it. Mess with global blocks. If you edit it on the home page, it's going to edit to all other pages except this. So you do have to update your navigation in both places. Mine's pretty easy because I'm just setting up the free consultation link and I'm deleting all these other links. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Right here, the second part of the, I would say, configuration of this particular page is that there's a light logo and a dark logo. Now you can't see it because when you scroll down this particular theme, the sticky nav and the builder is turned off for editing purposes. But on the site, when you scroll down, the sticky nav stays, right? That's the dark logo. And that's the light or reverse, right? So how are you going to edit that? And this is where a lot of people get frustrated is how can I edit something I can't see or have access to? That's the layers panel. So let's just say you swapped out this logo and saved it, and then you come over here and you notice that the directory logo is still up there. Well, how can I change that? Well, based on the layers and how this is set up, there has to be an image somewhere behind there. So click on the image, click on settings or the layers panel, and you'll see that there's another one just right below it, right here. It's on the same layer. Just select it and then click on settings and swap it out. And now you have that swapped out and saved it. So it's a hidden image there that you don't see. Some themes that we have, when you scroll down, the sticky nav works just fine. This particular theme, there's a conflict, so you can't do that. But that's how you do it within there. It also works for like specialized mobile views, even though you can click on mobile here and see the mobile view, for editing purposes. You have sometimes a hidden navigation that you're not aware of that you can easily find within here, within this layer system once you get used to it. So yeah, so that's how you configure this. And then the last thing I'm going to show you before we move on to the next video, I'm going to go back to the home page and show you how to set up an anchor link. An anchor link is essentially, I just want to link to a certain section within the site. And I want to, again, I'm not going to create you could create a whole page for a free consultation. I just did a little box here, the CTA box. This is going to go on every single page, which is going to be really cool. The video for SEO optimization using the tags. All this content's going to change based on the profile listing, the categories, some really cool stuff that you can do with the tags. But I just want this block to be on every single page. So I don't necessarily need to create a page for it. I just want to link to it so it drops down to that section. To do that, it's called an anchor link. And so to do that, you need to have an ID associated with where you want it to go. So for example, I want it to go into this section. So you click on the section, come over here to settings, and then you have an ID here. It's either blank or there may be an ID already existing. You can change that ID to whatever you want, as long as it's no spaces, right? It could be uppercase, lowercase. I just did free consultation, make it super simple with a dash. I grab that link, and then up here where I'm linking to it, I click on the link and I click on settings, and it's just a number sign with that link, with that name, that ID. And it could be numbers, it could be whatever. I like naming it something that makes sense. And so I put that on there. And so now when you link, when you click on it, it's going to take you to that section. Now, one trick to do, if you're not going to have this on every page, which I am going to have this on every page, you're not going to want to link it that way. You're going to want to link it with / on it, or whatever page that you're linking to that has that on there. Because let's say you're on an interior page and you don't have that free consultation block on that page, and they click on it, it's not going to go anywhere because that ID doesn't exist on that page, but it does exist on the home page or whatever page it is. So if it's a home page, I'm doing / but let's say it was on the About Us section, / that would link no matter where I'm at. If I click that link, it'll take me to the About Us page, and then it'll drop me down to that section, automatically. In my case, I'm going to have it on every single page, so I'm not even going to have / I want them to stay on the page and just go directly down. So yeah, that's pretty easy. Hopefully this helped you understand the linking. If you have any questions, drop it into the comments below and I'll help explain this even further. I don't want you thinking you have to come in here and change up all these links. It's built in automatically for you. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Essentially, all you need to do is figure out your navigation links and then your static category links. There is some thought to that because you do want to link properly to the categories that are being generated. If you're using our automated worker technology, those categories are being generated based on GMaps. If you're importing data, or if you're using the system to supply the categories and people are coming in and actually creating manual listings and not using our autopilot system, it's just the name of the category, all lowercase, dashes for spaces, and then C / C / that name, right? So hopefully that made a whole lot of sense. If not, feel free to drop a comment. Again, if you haven't liked and subscribed, the next video we're going to go over actually setting up the directory, doing the directory settings that are down here, and how you can set those and what those are for. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great one.